Using our 19mm socket, let's go ahead and remove our lug nuts. Let's grab our wheel, remove it, and set it aside. I'm going to go ahead and remove our brake caliper. By doing this here, we're going to remove this 13mm stud right here, or bolt, and then there's one up top. We're going to go ahead and remove that one as well. Now what we're going to do is use our pry bar, and we're going to go ahead and work our brake caliper off here. You want to have some sort of strap or a caliper hook to hang this once we remove it. Hanger here. I'm going to hook it, and we're just going to support that up on our coil spring. Just hang that up and out of the way. Let's go ahead and use a small pry bar. You can go ahead and remove your brake pads. We're going to remove our two 14mm bolts holding our caliper bracket to the knuckle. Once we get this bolt out, I'm going to go ahead and repeat for the top. And once you have that bolt loose, you want to go ahead and support that caliper bracket. You don't want to have that drop and hit you in the foot. Go ahead and pull out the bolt and go ahead and remove your caliper bracket. And at this point here, we can go ahead and straighten out our wheel. We want to go ahead and remove the center cap here. I'm going to use a pry bar with a little bit of an edge on there. We're just going to gently tap. I'm going to continue to do this around here. We want to slowly work this off. And as I'm tapping this, I'm slowly prying it out. There we go. And pop that cover off, set that aside. Remove your cotter pin. Remove the castle nut. I'm going to go ahead and remove our spindle nut here. I'm just using a pair of adjustable pliers here to go ahead and spin this off. Set that aside. If you wobble like that, I'm going to go ahead and pop a washer off. Your outer bearing will pop out. Then you can go ahead and grab that brake rotor, slip it right off of the spindle. And when the front side of our bearing is already out, I'm going to flip this over, and we have a wheel seal on the back side here. I'm going to go ahead and just use a pry bar. And wheel seal is a one-time use only, so what we're going to do is pop that out like so. Remove the inner bearing. Now on the inside and the outside of this brake rotor, there's what we call a bearing race. It's a concave metal dish for that bearing to fit in, and it rolls on that. I want to go ahead and knock both of those out. So let's go ahead and get to that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a brass punch, and I'm going to go down through from the back side to the front, and I'm going to go to the back lip of the race, and I'm basically going to use a hammer, and I'm going to work my way around and knock that race out. I'm just going to continue to work my way around, popping that out evenly. And there is the race itself. And when you're popping this unit out, you're actually putting your punch on the back edge of this here, working your way around, working it down and out of the brake rotor. You're going to go ahead and do the same for the back side now. Now we have our other race out. Go ahead and clean the inside of our brake rotor here. Go ahead and spray this down with a solvent to clean this up. Do the same for the front. At this point, we want to go ahead and press our upper bearing race into the top of the rotor. Go ahead and line this up. Make sure the concave side is facing down. And we're going to use a 34mm socket. The reason for that is that it fits the outside rim of this absolutely perfect. And we're going to use that to tap this into place. You can see that the race is starting to slide in. I want to make sure that race is completely seated inside. Let's go ahead and flip it over and do the other side. Now we have the back race set into place. We're going to use the old race with a wide bottom to fit around here. And we're just going to gently tap this around. We just want to get this seated in here first. I'm going to go ahead and flip the bearing over. Continue to work this in. And try and work this around evenly. It's going in nice and smooth. We're going to keep doing this until this bearing race is seated way down below. It's going to come a point where this starts to wedge in itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to split this here so that way there it has a little bit of room to expand or compress in, and we'll continue to work this in. Now that we have a slit in here, it's going to allow us to compress that and pop this unit out afterward. Let's continue to tap this in. So we switched over to another piece of a bearing unit here to go ahead and tap in that race a little bit more. And we have our race completely set in there. Let's go ahead and get our bearings greased and ready for installation. And what we're doing is we're greasing our bearing. We have our front bearing pre-greased here. I'm going to set that aside. At this point here, this is where you want to go ahead and install your back bearing. Now our back rotor itself was pretty rusted, so we opted to go to a new rotor. Our new rotor comes with the bearing race already installed in it. So at this point here, let's go ahead and set our bearing into the back side. And we can go ahead and we're going to put some extra grease down inside here. I'm going to clean up the outer edge here. Then we're going to take your seal. I'm going to line that up. I'm going to gently tap this into place. Now you're going to take a look at our spindle. We're going to go ahead and clean this up. Now when you're cleaning this, you want to inspect for any scores, any marring, any deformation in this here. Check the threads also on this. Clean that up the best you can. Now our spindle looks really good, so let's go ahead and get our brake rotor installed. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put some grease inside of the brake rotor here. What we want to do is try and pack the inside of the rotor hub with enough grease so that it's level with our bearing race all the way through. And ours looks pretty good in here. What we're going to do is install our rotor. Going to line this up. Feed the spindle through the bearing in the back and push it through like so. Take your other bearing, slide that in. If you want, you can put some extra grease inside now. Gonna pack that in there. Next, you're going to take your washer, line that up, push that on. I'm going to take that spindle nut, and we're going to spin that in. I'm going to thread this on as far as we can. I'm going to go ahead and use a 27mm socket on this, and we're going to tighten this down as we rotate the brake rotor here. What we're doing is we're going to seat the bearings. And keep on rotating this here. Loosen it. I'm going to tighten it a little again. And you just basically, what you're looking to feel for is a little pop where this all snaps into place. At this point here, just gonna loosen that just a tiny bit. With that seated, let's go ahead and wipe the face of this here. We're going to install our castle nut. I want to make sure that the hole on the spindle here lines up with one of the notches on the castle. Let's go ahead and feed a cotter pin through. I'm going to go ahead and tap this over. I'm going to cut off the excess. We're going to take our dust cap, get that on there. I'm going to go ahead and tap that into place. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my brass punch and gore on the perimeter. You don't really want to smash the end of this here with the hammer or mallet because you can flatten it out. Then that's going to come in contact with the cotter pin on the inside and possibly make noises. Work your way around, seat the cap. There you go. Let's go ahead and install our caliper bracket. Line that up and get our bolt started. Once we get started a few threads, go ahead and get the bottom one in. Gonna go ahead and snug down our bolts here. Let's go ahead and torque down our caliper bracket bolts here to 85 foot-pounds. Now what we're going to do is take our brake caliper, remove the support hook here, and we're just going to install one upper bolt on our caliper. I'm going to go ahead and use a 3/8 socket. What we want to do is loosen up our bleeder screw here. You can see we have some brake fluid coming out, and that's exactly what we want to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to snug that back up just to stop that fluid from coming out. Let's go ahead and give that a wipe down. Now with the bleeder screw loose, let's go ahead and remove our support bolt here. And go ahead and hang this again. Install your brake pads. Go ahead and grab our brake caliper here. Now what you want to do is have a catch can or some towels underneath. What we're going to do is we're going to open up this bleeder screw so that we can release the pressure from the brake system. We have a little bit of brake fluid coming out. Now what we're going to do is use our compressor tool here. We want to go ahead and work these two pistons back into the caliper. As we're doing this here, it's actually working brake fluid out of the bleeder screw. We went ahead and put our hook back on here just to kind of support the caliper itself. Now we have both of our pistons completely retracted inside of the unit here. I'm going to go ahead and release that. Now we can go ahead and tighten up our bleeder screw and snug that down. Give us a good wipe down. And if you have some solvent here, go ahead and give that a good spray just to kind of clean that up. We don't want to have any residual brake fluid on here to contaminate our brake pads. On the inside of our brake caliper, we have an anti-rattle clip here. I'm just going to use a small pry tool here. Pop that out. Take your new one and align this up. I want to get that snapped and pressed into place, like so. Once we have this in place, we'll go ahead and remove our support hook here and align this up. And we're going to install our upper bolt first. I'll work our caliper over our brake pads. Get our upper bolt started here. Once that's caught, we'll go ahead and get our lower bolt started. Now we have the two bolts started. I'm going to go ahead and snug these down. Let's go ahead and torque down our caliper bolts here. I'm going to take these to 35 foot-pounds. Repeat for the upper. And at this point here, once you have your brakes on, you want to go ahead and hop into the vehicle. You want to pump up the brake, make sure you get a solid pedal. If you don't have a solid pedal, you want to come back and you want to go ahead and start your bleeding process. Once you're done with your bleeding process of your brake system here, you can go ahead and install your wheel. Let's go ahead and install our wheel. Once we get that on, I'm going to go ahead and install our lug nuts. Going to get all these started by hand, and then we're going to go ahead and snug them down. Let's go ahead and torque our lug nuts down to 100 foot-pounds.